What we're going to do now is a little different. As I mentioned, HomeGain is a place for you guys to learn how to be more successful, and you can learn from each other. I think that's one of the most important things. We made available here today HomeGain personnel, and now what I want to do is I want to bring together some industry experts and some people who they don't use HomeGain, yet they've got some very good insights into what's going on in the market. And we have one gentleman here who doesn't use HomeGain but has built a very successful brokerage. So what we like to do is bring these gentlemen up, introduce them, and then get a discussion started about what they see happening in the market, what they think's working, what they think the future is going to be. So without further ado, let's bring up first one, the gentleman named Jay Thompson. Jay, come on up. You might know Jay as the Phoenix real estate guy. As we noted earlier, Jay has been blogging for 4 years. He has a very interesting practice that he's built solely on social media. We'll be talking to Jay of Thompson Brokerage. Thank you. Have a seat. The next guest I want to bring up is Joe Farrar. Joe, you may know as our blogging professor. Joe, welcome, Joe. Joe has been our blogging professor for about a year, so that means he's produced over 52 blogging lessons over the course of the year. Joe started with the Celsius blog, and he's been at that for what, 4 years now? 3 years now. It'll be 4 next year. So, okay, Joe, thank you very much. Have a seat. Okay. Joe guest blogs also for us. The next guest I want to bring up is Pat Catano of Domus Consulting. Pat knows a lot about social media. And we're going to benefit from his insights today. And have a seat. And our latest guest, the notorious Rob Hahn of 7DS. No entrance music. We didn't get the licensing fee for it. Rob, come on in and have a seat. So, yeah, we can have that off until you think. Okay, so we got 2 mics. We'll be okay up here. One of the things we talked about today, and Mitch talked about, I think that resonated with a lot of people, was the use of systems. And BuyerLink lends itself very well to systems. You bring your traffic in from the top of the funnel and you follow it all the way to the bottom. And you saw Mitch grappling with, how do I do that with the other HomeGain products? And the answers really weren't there. So I think people are attracted to systems. Now, when you get into social media, it gets even more blurry because you're not really sure where your SEO is going to be on any given point. You're not really sure where your next lead is coming from. And that's why what Jay has achieved is quite remarkable, because Jay receives all of his leads from his social media presence. So Jay, I'd like to turn it over to you and talk about how you and your wife kind of started your practice, where you are now, where you see it going, and what systems you put in place.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. My wife and I are both agents. We worked with a Century 21 brokerage when we first started about 5 years ago, fully intending to go off on our own and start our own brokerage. So a year ago, February, we started Thompson's Realty, which is just a small independent. We're not associated with we're independent virtual office brokerage. So we have no brick or mortar presence. We have no real office. We now have 12 agents that work for us, and we cover the whole Phoenix market. I started blogging almost as soon as I got into real estate about 4.5 years ago. Started the blog, and it's done really well. It is a ton of work. Okay, it's my form of prospecting. So I write a blog post. I don't send postcards. I don't work expireds or FSBOs. I don't do print marketing. It's all strictly internet, social media, and most of it's from the blog. Tools that we use, like for lead management.
How do you know how many leads you have at any given time, and how are you following up and determining what your business is going to be so that you know how many people to hire and what your income flow is going to be?
It's a good question. We have several websites. The blog with Phoenix Real Estate Guy blog is one, and it's probably the primary. I have a more traditional realtor website as well. All of those, or both of those, will probably generate 95 to 98% of our leads. It's interesting because earlier the discussion came out about do you force registration, and on my blog Home Search I do not, but on my traditional website I do, and there's no question that I get more leads, and I use that term loosely because what is a lead anyway? I get more contacts, more tangible contacts through the forced registration, even though the blog has significantly more traffic than the traditional website. So the website has its own built-in back-end lead management system. The blog has nothing. Well, the blog has it too through the IDX, but I'm an old-fashioned guy, and I came out of the engineering industry. I use a spreadsheet. I use an Excel spreadsheet that I dump everybody into, name, phone number if I have it, and the type of search that they're doing. And I just every morning I go into the back end, I see who's signed up, and I add them to the spreadsheet. And it's just it's a huge spreadsheet. I've got probably 9,000 people in my database. I do a drip email campaign that's very basic. I send them a welcome note, basically. And I think it was Mitch who was talking about 6 weeks later, sending are you still out there? Just, we're letting you know we're there. I do that. I don't drip them, every week or even every month. It's an initial welcome, we're here, call us if you need anything. But mine's set at 8 weeks, I believe. 8 weeks later, I shoot out another email automatically that just says, hey, we're still here. If you have any questions, call us.
Okay. Now, Jay works with most of which would call the soft sell, and I'd just like to get some input on that. Pat, you have a theory about we're going to move back to traditional advertising but using social media. You want to comment on that, what you mean by that?
That's actually been the evolution of how social media has gone. Most people that started out with blogs and moved to Twitter and Facebook and all of this have understood that the protocols of social media was to be as inoffensive as possible. And what I actually think the critical point is happening right now, where enough people, especially in the real estate industry, have gone through this route and understand that there has to be a return on investment in order to make social media work for them. And we see a lot of new applications coming, streaming every week that are hardcore, blatant advertising. And we actually also believe that Twitter is going to be one of the major local advertising platforms for the internet at this point. If you think of local advertising, and you know that the local newspapers are going on by the wayside, there's no place for a local, think beyond real estate. There's no place for a local retailer or even an accountant or a lawyer to be able to advertise beyond the yellow pages, which again is also going by the wayside. And Twitter has started to serve as the proxy for being able to create an advertising platform. And we actually have been developing unique systems that bridge the local community together with the real estate brokerage or the real estate agents in different markets. And we've been really pursuing that. And when I say that everything is going to start going into the hard sell, in the sense that you can now go into Twitter and start creating data feeds that actually pushes out, for example, listings in real time as soon as it's put out there through special Twitter feeds. In fact, we have an automated Twitter system now that can take any city in the United States and push out, as soon as the listing hits the MLS, based on the IDX system, a tweet automatically in different regions of the market. Now, most people will think it's spam. Let's say it's here in the Bay Area, let's say San Mateo, which is down on the peninsula. No one's who's interested in San Mateo real estate is going to subscribe to that feed, but someone who wants to buy a house in San Mateo is going to subscribe to that feed if it's evident that they can find that feed. And we're going to see a lot of these. Twitter is going to replace RSS. And I know I'm talking at a higher level, but it's already done so in certain cases, at least in the higher technology circles, where people are relying more on Twitter as a means of finding out what's going on as opposed to RSS. And once that happens, you're going to see advertising platforms banging left and right in the social media space. And it's going to happen more on Twitter than on Facebook, because Twitter is a powerful broadcast media. When we talk about social media, it really is a media. Everyone has a broadcasting tool, and we've always positioned Twitter as that tool. Facebook is a little bit more intimate. People can't blast or broadcast through Facebook, and that's why we think that Twitter, that's why Twitter is getting so much attention. If people are trying to figure out why is Twitter so profound, this is actually the reason. It's the reasons that You are now creating a completely new media, which actually can say radio, television, newspaper. That's a media, but you can add Twitter to that list very shortly. And if it's not Twitter in 2 years, it's going to be something very Twitter-like. So that's what I'm talking about. That's where the new media and the new advertising platform is going to happen, and it's going to happen instantaneously, where people are not going to hesitate to see massively spammy Twitter feeds. And of course, if you're on Twitter, you can ignore those feeds, and that's what is going to happen as a role of the culture of Twitter.
Give me an example of that. What's happening with Dell? A lot of social media proponents are talking about you go online and you almost pretend that you're not a real estate agent. You kind of talk about your dog, your life, get them interested in you, and then when the time comes, you start talking about real estate. I think what you're talking about, Pat, is you make it your business to do business on Twitter. And if you look at what Dell has done, Dell's not joining any conversation. Dell's not making friends. People sign up to follow Dell, and Dell uses Twitter very effectively to broadcast their message to them about specials, to handle customer service inquiries, and so on. So I think what's happened out there in today's world is that people have used Twitter as a kind of social, which it is, but I think the business applications are going to start coming through. You want to add something?
So I guess my role on this panel is to be the killjoy, for this particular train. Imagine that, right? So I actually heard the Dell outlet example brought up a number of times in the past, couple of months, and I've had a lot of discussions and debates. Here's where I think is, hey.
Dell on the line. It's Michael.
That's Michael Dell right there.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Sorry. Here's where I really saw a big problem, if you will, for taking that. And I felt the same way when Gary Vee was, talking at last in New York about using social media and, da-da-da and so on and so forth. And the problem is this. One of the fundamental facts about real estate industry, and I am not a realtor, I'm not an agent, I'm not a broker, not a mortgage guy, so, please feel free to you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But having said that, one of the fundamental facts about the real estate industry is the very non-commoditizable nature of the things that you guys are selling. So in other words, I looked at Dell Outlet and said, of course it makes all the sense in the world. If I'm into Dell computers, if I'm in the IT department, I have to buy 30 or 40 laptops every week, why wouldn't I subscribe to a channel that is offering me discounts, constantly discounts or special offers or whatever, knowing that I can use that across the board, right? And then if I socialize that, so I start retweeting, hey, Dell Outlet says 30% off the Inspiron or whatever it is, then my friends are going to benefit from that. With housing, I don't see how that works. So I find a great listing. It's, it's 30% off. It's 30% below market. I go and buy it. If I retweet that, who cares? It's already been bought, right? So I don't understand exactly how we apply some of the mass market product-based commoditized businesses, what they're doing, into real estate. And there are a couple of these fundamental things I feel like when we talk about social media, when we talk about marketing, we talk about trends, we have to take the fundamentals into account.
Sure. So let's take it. Joe and I have had this discussion on social media. One of the things that we realize is that social media works great for movies. Social media works great for books because individuals can join a conversation. You're just as much an expert in a book or a movie because you've read a lot of books or you've seen a lot of movies. Your opinion matters. But when you get into real estate, your opinion doesn't matter as a consumer as much because you might have bought or sold one home. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not talking about using Twitter to sell houses, but to sell realtor services. So let's say you set up a Twitter feed, for example, like what Pat has with his breaking news in a particular real estate area, and you are the real estate area. You're the real estate agent in that area. And you get people to follow you because you are sending out information in that area about your area, then people are going to subscribe to your feed, and then perhaps they're going to contact you when it comes time to buy or sell a home. So I wouldn't. You're right. It's a commodity product.
So let's talk about that specific issue. And I know you said Joe, so I'm going to let Joe talk about the specific issue.
All right. All this stuff is tools we're talking about. Okay. Now some people are better at certain tools than others. Okay. So Twitter's a tool. Can you broadcast and get business? Yeah, you can. I still believe it's better for products than services. But there is a way to use Twitter to actually get business. It's called the AKS method. I don't know whether I read it or found it out, discovered it myself. Well, I don't think I invented it, but I'll take credit for it. But people will put out on Twitter, anyone know a realtor in this area? Anyone know a good lawyer? Anyone know Now, you can tap into this stream of these questions. Basically, these are not leads, these are needs, right? So you go to Twitter search, go to search.twitter.com, and you type in those keywords, anyone know a realtor in whatever your market is, all right? You will get tweets from people who have put that message out there. If you happen to be in one of those markets where someone is saying, anyone know a good realtor in San Francisco, you can get in that conversation and say, hey, I saw your tweet. I happen to work in San Francisco. How can I help you? And because you're a member of the Twitter community, right away you've already got some commonality with them. Okay? And because they've put it out there, they're looking for a realtor, you're responding to their, I call need. I don't like lead. I think that's a crappy word. It's like a used car. But this is a way to use Twitter. So it's a tool, and it's a way to use it where you're not broadcasting. It's where you're actually prospecting for people who are looking for help. So with any of these things that you read about or hear about, my thing is always to try to find how can I be different? How can I use this tool in a way no one else has used it? So I never discount anything. And I never even say social media replaces traditional marketing. I was born in the 50s. I'm from the old school. I built a huge client base, handshake to handshake, smile to smile. That will never die. Social media adds another component to it. To the extent you can do it, you do it. And you've got to remember, when people throw out the word social media, it's a big cloud. There's actually like at least 5 categories of social media. I don't have them given you now, but go to my site, Celsius blog, and type in, I think in the search, what's that post I wrote, Rob? Does size matter in social media? Does it just feel good? So in there,
none of your titles are ever suggestive in any way, Joe.
No. Well, you got to get attention, right? My thing is always standing out from the crowd. I'm a big believer in brand. I'm a big believer in being an expert. And I wrote another post, the social schmoozer, maybe a schmuck. Yeah, so what I'm saying is just concentrate on what you're good at. And if you're good at it, you're going to meet people in traditional marketing and online if you can do it. And you pick the channels that work for you. And there's at least 5 channels. And the last thing I want to say is write this down. It's called meetup.com. If any of you guys from the old school, like the school I went to, which is still a good school, meetup.com is social media but in real life. You actually sign up for whatever interests you. It could be race cars or canasta, which I like, or something else, and you'll get a group of people together who like that topic. You will meet and talk and get to know each other socially, face to face, which is the way I like to do it. And just by coincidence, they'll come up, what do you do? I'm a realtor. And that, I think, is a great way to use social media in the real world.
Can I add to that? That's almost exactly how I use, particularly Twitter. Twitter freaks a lot of people out. They're like, you just don't get it. And if you don't know what Twitter is, basically it's a way to send a message of 140 characters. That's it, at the most. I've used Meetup.com, and there's several tools that Twitter is linked into to give you access to do tweet-ups. Okay, everything in the Twitter world starts with tweet-up. It's stupid and it's annoying, but that's the way it is. So I go to a tweet-up almost every Friday night. It was started by a guy he's a big podcaster, and he's a web geek in Phoenix. And it's called East Valley Friday Nights. So I live in the East Valley of Phoenix. Now there's a West Valley Friday Nights, there's a North Valley Friday Nights, and it's basically, it'll range anywhere from 15 people to 80 people that show up at a bar or a restaurant or someplace like that, and we meet and we talk face to face. Because social media, like Joe said, is a tool. The best social network on the planet is and always will be real life. Okay, we all sell real estate. I sell real estate. None of them sell real estate, and it's a face-to-face, belly-to-belly business. It's important to make that connection. So you can use these social media tools to meet people. It's called IRL. Okay, everything's in Twitter is also shortened because you only have 140 characters. IRL, in real life. And if you can use these social media tools to meet people in real life, I've never given any of these people a business card. I never will. But every single one of them knows I sell real estate, and I've started helping them buy real estate.
And Jay wrote an interesting article, 2 articles for us on the HomeGain blog. One was called How to Twitter, and the other one was called How Not to Twitter. I think one of the most important takeaways I took from that was, and I'll let Jay say it, is do you expect to get business from Twitter?
I think if you're going to Twitter to get leads or prospects, you're making a big mistake. It's not the tool for that. It is a tool I use it I drive traffic to my blog, because every time I post to my blog, something goes out on Twitter. It's a link. People click on it, come back to my blog. If you use it to engage and to meet people, have I gotten business from Twitter? Absolutely. I can say that unequivocally. I can't even say the word. You know what I mean? I can say that. I get
Without
business
doubt.
from Twitter. Thank you. But if you do Twitter to get business, I think you're probably making a mistake.
And you probably can't systematize your social contacts in the same way that you can viral traffic.
No, you can't. It's very fuzzy. It's nebulous, but it's cool stuff.
It is
really
cool, and
is
Jay's a
stuff.
master at it. That's why I have him up here. Now, I know Rob is either looking to interrupt someone or to show us his video, so we're going to let him talk about his video.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to talk about the video. I just queued it up just in case it comes out, since the topic was trends. But kind of picking up on what you guys said, here would be sort of the things that I would be concerned about. Starting with what you said about, it's about promoting your service. Well, there's fundamental fact number 2 about real estate, which is the consumer's in the market every 7 years, unlike Dell buyers, which is in the market every 2 months. So if you're really spending all this time trying to promote yourself as a realtor to an audience that's in the market every 7 years, I don't know how effective that's going to be. That's a lot of tweeting you're going to have to do before you see some results from that. At the same time, you're all sitting here. I guarantee right now, somewhere in this country, there's a room very similar to this with hundreds of realtors, and somebody very much like us is up on stage saying, you guys need to use Twitter and social media. So using your example, or I can't remember who mentioned it, you do a search on TweetDeck and you find the Marin County area realtor, and somebody says, anybody know a good realtor? And you jump in and say, I'm a realtor, I'm in your county, what can I do for you? Imagine that every realtor in your market does this. I'm just saying, look, we're talking trends in the future, right? I know for a fact that every realtor right now is getting the message of social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, social media. So all I'm bringing up is, if everybody else is doing it, what differentiates you? And that leads to, in my opinion, one of the most important trends from a marketing standpoint that we have to look at in the real estate industry going forward, which is the reemergence of the brand. Whether it's a company brand or your personal brand, it is a reemergence of the brand. I think Jay, when this event comes to pass and every realtor in the Phoenix area is on Twitter and blogging and the rest of it, he'll have an immense advantage simply because he's already there and acknowledged as a brand expert. And by whom? Well, here's where I turn what Pat said kind of around, where Twitter is a new media platform, and you're all sitting there thinking of it as you are now the media going out to the world. It's actually sort of the other way around. It's that every single consumer you have owns a media company. So imagine every client you have is an anchor for ABC News, and that's actually the equivalent of what this sort of future looks like. In that world, it may not be good for Jay to go out and say, hey, I'm Jay, I've got this brand. It's much better for all of his clients to go, Jay's the man. So this really warps, and I think this is a trend that we have to look at. It's something that you guys have to think about, is when this tool, when this system gets popularized, becomes ubiquitous, is everywhere, what is going to make someone who is in the market once every 7 years, looking for a non-commodity product, care about you? Chances are it's not going to come from you.
Rob, let me give a 4-point strategy on this, all right? Because this segues right into exactly how to use Twitter. The first thing is that it is a massively amazing branding tool because people retweet you all the time. When I put out a tweet right now, I average about 100 click-throughs on a link that I put on my tweet. Now, the reason why it's, if you think of an email mailing, people click 100 times on your email to go to your blog. It's similar to that, except it's a tweet, which I've constructed in about a minute. Now, that's actually the viral marketing potential of Twitter, is that the branding is such that you have to make your Twitter account feeds a pure account. And this is where you don't chit-chat. In fact, I have a couple of rules for it, but here's the key, is that, if you publish nothing more than great information about the housing markets in your area, plus other news about the economy, that's fine, because the market's doing great. You should talk about why the market is doing great. Then people will find you as a trusted, you're almost like a anchor person. You're a news person, and that's what the media is. And so that's all I do on my Twitter account. And I have a rule. I don't chit-chat with anyone on my Twitter account, because by doing so and having long conversations on Twitter, it detracts from the message that I'm sending out on my Twitter account. You can have a number of different Twitter accounts. If you want to have a personal account that you can chit-chat with people on, that is great. So keep the chit-chat to the minimum, and also on your Twitter account, you should really only talk to strangers. That's my role. And the reason you talk to strangers is those strangers are the people that talk to you. If you get a big following, what happens is that on average, 5 to 10 people per day start talking to you. And all those people have some sort of common business interest, and every single one of our assignments as a consulting company have come through Twitter because people know where to find us. So this is exactly how you use Twitter. There are specific rules to make your Twitter feed engaging. And once you've got those those rules down, you will get in your city, let's say it's San Francisco, you will get a number of followers in San Francisco piling up to follow you. And we've proven that through our strategies with other people.
Let me ask you a question, Pat, because a lot of people have gone onto social media and they spend an inordinate amount of time on there. I was speaking to one of our members here today, and she basically said, look, I'm addicted. I'm on there 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and I can't get off it. And Pat, how much time do you spend a day?
I spend about 15 minutes per day on Twitter. More now, actually, because you know what? I'm handling a lot of different new Twitter accounts because we're building a lot of different Twitter systems. So at one point, 2 months ago, I was spending 15 minutes a day on Twitter, and I have, let's say, at that time, about 18,000 followers. All grown organically, by the way. I never touched one of those systems that gets you a lot of followers. They all grew organically. And the reason they grew organically is I followed that rule of basically putting out pristine information.
Interesting. Joe, do you want to come in?
Yeah. Actually, I'm of Pat's school of thought, too. I do that, too. I've created basically Twitter accounts that are almost automated with automatic news feeds on the local area. And I encourage the people just, if they have time, to broadcast it out. I think if you're going to use it as a broadcast medium, it's good to do it that way, because you can get hooked on this stuff and start talking to people back and forth, and it'll eat up your day. It's a real time suck. So if you're going to use it, and again, as I stress, this is not the only way to go. Social media is not going to replace traditional face-to-face interaction. It's just another channel that you can exploit, and some channels you may feel better with. Maybe you like Flickr, or you like YouTube, or whatever it is. You do a bunch of seminars, and you record the seminars, put them on YouTube, syndicate them through TubeMogul, and let those videos get out there. And then people will say, hey, this guy always does videos on market issues in my market. Maybe that's going to be your niche that you become good at. I mean, so don't even think you have to be on Twitter. But if you're going to use Twitter, I'm more of the broadcast type too myself. I'd rather send stuff out there and not just spend a lot of time talking, because it'll just eat up a lot of your time. And a lot of this stuff can be automated, as Pat has said. And I do it too.
Switch off of Twitter. Twitter ends up dominating a lot of the conversations. One of the things that HomeGain suffers from is we've got, as we saw earlier today, we put up on the board the amount of money that people are making from HomeGain. But all of you are very quiet about that. Now, how do we get people to get this out there? Because when somebody sells a home on some social media site, they talk about it and you'll hear about it for weeks. It was the one deal they got, and it reverberates. Someone closes the deal quietly on HomeGain. It happens. Mitch closes the deal every day. People in this room are closing deals. But no one knows about it. And I think part of that is because real estate agents tell me, and that's why we had to put in our questionnaire, would you recommend HomeGain to a non-competing colleague of yours? I mean, what advice could you guys give me how we can promote HomeGain without, if you're going to use your colleagues? Make what free, Carl? Okay, so the suggestion is that HomeGain will deliver leads, and then when you close a deal, we say, great job, and then you say, we're great because you've closed a deal? Right. We brag all over the place. We got one on social media because it didn't cost us a penny.
But if you list my house, right, and you sold it for a price that I wanted, I paid you, right? Should I not brag about the service that I got from you?
Well, you can, sure.
Right.
And I'll help you do it.
But if I don't, you're cool with that? You don't understand that?
No. Hold on a minute. If somebody buys a product from a company, I mean, Zappos is the social media darling. You buy the shoes from them. You don't get them for free, but people still brag about them. So what I'm suggesting is, yes, there is a business relationship. We did send you the lead. You closed it. We got paid for it. But what I'm suggesting is we're not bragging about that. Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. What are the human nature things involved that somebody will go out and talk about their shoes ad nauseum to somebody and brag about Zappos, but they won't do the same about a service like HomeGain?
Here's what I would do, right? After you close, like, I don't know, X amount of deals, you get maybe 1 freebies or 2 freebies, you know? You give something like that. You got to give back. It's all about being creative. Anything that gets attention is being creative, stepping out from the crowd, doing something that no one does. And that means, giving something away. It's like the Quan. How do you get the Quan? You got to do something that merits it. If I give you a freebie saying, hey, you see it all the time. You buy 5 ice creams and you get the 6th one free. So maybe that's the way to do it.
Linda. Yes, but I'm the one who makes it. But exactly. I'm making that argument that, hey, look at all these members making money, but the members aren't doing it.
I think part of HomeGain's problem, it's not a problem really, and we've had this discussion, companies that sell leads don't have the best reputation within the real estate space. There's a lot of people, I think there's a lot of agents out there that don't want to admit. It's almost like admitting defeat. Oh, the only way I can succeed is by buying leads. There's nothing wrong with buying leads. There's some phenomenal numbers up here. This thing works, okay? But I think that bad connotation, and it's not just HomeGain, it's house values. I mean, you know, people. I don't know how you get over that.
Ad is you buy an ad in the newspaper, you buy paying for a lead. You're always paying for it anyway. The question is, what's their ROI? Is it worth it? Everything boils down to that, right? I don't mind paying if I'm going to get it back. It doesn't bother me.
If I go buy a pair of shoes, I brag about the deal I got. I don't necessarily brag about the shoes. I'm not going to go brag about the fact I had to pay a commission to get a lead, because I don't want other buyers out there in social media to know about you. If I can get them for free on Trulia, why am I going to direct them to HomeGain and brag about HomeGain? I don't want them to know, quite frankly.
Someone paid you for the referral, right?
Yeah. Sheila, can you? All right.
I have a suggestion for you, Louis. Earlier today, Eric talked about authority and the internet, and if maybe HomeGain did some more training about how your authority could be borrowed from the agents who've had success. So in other words, they're blogging about the success of a HomeGain sale on your website, because that gives them authority back to them. So perhaps the answer is more that they need a better understanding, because social networking for a lot of realtors is not that pronounced or that authoritative in their life. So training them on how it benefits them to talk about you is the method that will get them to talk about you.
That makes sense. And if you're only on Agent View and you're not paying any referral fee, you'd probably be more likely to brag about it, because if they come through Agent View, then you're not paying a commission. They might as well come through. Linda, do you have?
Well, I think Jay, hit the nail on the head, because I do brag about HomeGain, and I've written blogs bragging about HomeGain, and I do get a fair amount of little emails that say, well, if people like you didn't pay for those leads, but I don't care, but a lot of people probably do. So I think that's the answer. I don't know how you fix it, but that's just a fact.
So let me ask a question to you, Louis. I mean, do you really care if your members are bragging about you, if they're referring business to you?
What I was getting at was, you mentioned one of the future models was to get not you to say how wonderful you are, was to get your users to do it. And then I was looking to you guys to say, well, how do we get to do that when they're not really doing that as much? Linda, we have examples of HomeGain agents, plenty of you step forward and say nice things about us, and just even being here, I'm very grateful for you guys to be here. It really does help us to say, hey, HomeGain can bring together 80 people in a room and talk about the benefits of HomeGain. But really, that's really the issue.
But I think part of it, from maybe my outsider perspective, is HomeGain to me strikes me as like some sort of a secret weapon. Why would you let anybody know about it? I mean, So I guess the way I would look at it is, do any of you have like siblings or children who are going to enter the business? Anyone? No? But if you did, wouldn't you tell them about home? Wouldn't you? Hey, yo, check this out. Yeah, it's one of these things. Like, why would I tell anybody about this unless they were really close friends of mine? To me, that seems like a success for you as opposed to being a failure.
And we are getting at, and one of the things I do want to achieve through these types of outings is somewhat of a members-only concept, where we get together and we share information, how to make each other successful. HomeGain can't service 1.2 million realtors anyway. We can service a few more, but we like the interaction that we have here. Even if you talk to each other, taking on Rob's point, or to your family members, that's good enough.
I think that's really the key. The fact that the people that are part of home, the reason I'm associated with HomeGain, I'm not a realtor, I'm a real estate attorney, but I'm in the same kind of relationship. I'm in the basically education mode, and I think HomeGain does a lot to help its agents use its products, because a lot of people throw out these tools and say, hey, go have some fun with them. The reason I got behind HomeGain and got involved with them, I said, look, at least you're making an effort to teach the members how to use the tools, because unless you know how to use them, it's almost worthless. And I think the group that was up here, one of the first groups that was up here, was very happy to share their techniques. And I forget who asked for was it Mitch that asked for the proposals? I said, sure, I'll show you my proposals. If you can learn from each other, then you'll make a stronger community, I think. And I think that's what it's all about. And if you're not competing with each other, what difference does it make?
Wayne? Right. So it highlights the fact that social media is and does work with social things like movies and books. But Joe, I mean, for something like, is a real estate agent any good? Does it work for does social media work for real estate really?
I think it's harder to work on a profession that deals with personal interaction. I come from the legal profession. My basis on relationships. My theory on the internet is that you can you can throw a wider net out and reach people like all over the world, but you don't go as deep. It's not a deep net. It's just really on the surface. I mean, you can develop it if you later on to be deep, but personally, if you meet them face to face, that's when you can really get deep and create a really deep relationship, and that's where business really comes from. So you have to kind of try to incorporate both of them, try to get that wide net out there, but if you can, try to meet people where you can go a lot deeper and forge those really deep relationships, which will lead to future business, which will lead to referrals. Rob's point is good about the 7-year itch with realtors. I think it's probably longer than that. I would say it's about 15 years. But maybe do rentals, right? Rentals guys are always in the market, right? Renters leave constantly. So maybe if you have part of your business is rentals, then maybe you can count on getting referrals from or repeat business from those clients. So if you ever know me, I'm always looking for the exception to the rule. I never take anything as absolute. I always look for a way to find a unique way to try something, stand out from the crowd, build your brand, and be an expert. Really ultimately it comes down to being an expert. And there's just no way around that. And again, you can use social media channels, you can use other channels, but unless you can convince people that you're an expert, and that you do by educating them, teach them something. And don't teach them what everyone else is just teaching them, like how to get the $8,000 buyer credit. I've read so many of those things, I just want to throw my computer across the room. Like, find something that's different and unique that no one talks about. That's how you'll really stand out.
Thanks, Joe.
We have another question in the back.
Sure.
Do you have time?
Sure.
Well, it was in response to your question. I took it as a genuine question on how to get your happy customers to tell more people that might become happy customers. And I think my question back would be, who do you want us to tell? From my frame of reference, I'm a buyer link customer, and I don't know that for the average agent, suggesting they go try it for a little while is going to work. I think it requires too much sophistication and commitment to where those leads go, having the landing pages set up and the follow-up systems. I don't think the average agent's going to benefit from it. I'd be delighted to tell people about, how successful I've been with it, but I don't know who that is.
Right. You're hitting
that
on
I
the
could
point,
really
Bill.
do a service to by telling them about
right.
you.
You're hitting on the point, Bill, that it really is a member. You have to have certain criteria in order to be a successful real estate agent, in order to use the HomeGain products correctly. Can we now switch over to the marketplace, because there's a lot of lessons to be learned in this particular market. I want to ask Jay a couple of questions. Jay is participating in, I think, the highest it's probably the foreclosure capital of the world, Phoenix. What are you doing now, and what do you anticipate to be doing as these foreclosures come off the market and change your strategy?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. The Phoenix market has been brutal. We shot up literally through the stratosphere in 2005, 2006. Home appreciation rates of 50, 60, 70% a year. So we were poised for a big, giant downfall. If you didn't see it coming, you had your head in the sand. But the market's already started to straighten itself out. At least in Phoenix, we have a 0.9-month supply of foreclosed homes right now. They are flying off the market. It's almost like it was back in 2005 with REOs. Multiple offer situations, over list price, 2-3 days on the market and they're gone. That type of situation. What we've done, I try to avoid short sales as much as possible because I find them excruciating to deal with. It's hard to avoid them in a market like Phoenix. You can't totally ignore them. But I still, whether it's short sale, REO, or a traditional home buyer or home seller, it still fundamentally boils down to customer service and being there at the right time and offering the stuff we've been talking about. Offering superior customer service, and that's going to hold true whether you're working REOs, short sales, or traditional sales.
Excellent.
You got to be ready for everything, though.
Yep. Pat, you have any thoughts on the real estate market in general?
It's actually, of course, tied to the consumer sentiment, and I see the consumer sentiment looking pretty good. So it looks like this year is just going to continue the way it's going. You're going to see geographically, everything coming up eventually, and if Phoenix is coming up like that, I'd say that this is going to be a year where you should really focus on doing what you do.
Yeah, we've got, as I mentioned, 16 states here represented. So perhaps, Sheila, if someone would like to just give a quick market update. We do this on our agent advisory panel. We get a market update from each of the regions. So we've got people here. Let's start with Connecticut. Maybe, Linda, you can tell us what's going on in your market.
I'll make it.
The number of sales is up significantly over last year. Prices are not, but the market is definitely improved.
California? Anyone want to speak on behalf of their California market?
We're experiencing about what Phoenix is in Sacramento. They're just flying off the market, multiple offers, anywhere from 10 to 30 offers per property in 2 to 3 days.
Okay. How about Colorado? Brian?
We're seeing some marginal increases in both volume and in price, but it's still kind of wait and see. I'm not holding my breath yet.
I know we have people here from Idaho.
Are you guys seeing in Phoenix the market seems almost stratified, the low end, and it depends on where you are, what the low end and what the high end are, but in Phoenix the low end, median to low is really, really moving, but I'd say median and above is still painful. I see a lot of heads nodding.
We saw a marginal increase on that next level, and then a 1% increase on our 500,000 plus. So it's still nominal.
Warren, what about Hawaii?
Yeah, well, in Hawaii, it's about some areas. It's pretty geographical there. Some areas hardest hit, I think, by REOs are now starting to recover, and sales volume is picking up. Some of the other areas that were declining slower, those areas are still a little stagnant, and I think people are still waiting.
Thanks, Warren. And what about Rose next to you? You want to talk about Nevada?
Yeah, for the first time in 3 years, we actually have low inventory. Sales are up, prices are not, pretty much like you said. We've almost dropped 50% in the low end. However, our high end has not dropped that much, maybe about 20%, and they're holding steady, and we're still getting the sales in.
Interesting. What about Sarah from New Jersey?
Actually, in Colts Neck, it's very surprising because we're up 30% in our market. Up 30% between the $1.2 million and $1.8 million price range. And I think that's because people that were in the $3 million homes needed to downgrade, if you can call that downsizing, and then people that were in the $800,000 homes said, honey, it's time, we can get that $3 million house now for $1.5 million. So 1.2 and 1.8 merged, and that caused a huge increase in Colts Neck. So we're actually doing really well.
You had a confluence of good events. Anyone else want to report on their market and state your state? No? How about any questions for our panelists up here?
I have one for Jay. Now, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. My name is Jonathan with Neighbor City, but you actually service customers directly through your VOW business? Meaning you're driving them around, showing them homes.
I do. I personally, this is going to sound kind of funny. I hate driving buyers around. Okay, I'm not a very good salesman. My wife does most of the actual client-to-client work because she's very good at it. I do though. I'm a broker, but I'm still actively involved in sales.
I was interested to know. You said you forced registration on your site. I kind of wanted to know how forced registration versus non-forced registration. I think you said you had both. And just sort of like, does it generate a different sort of, request or lead or need? And is the conversion rate, if you track that, a lot different?
It's hard for me to say, particularly on the forced registration, because I just started doing that. I've experimented turning it on and off in the past. Generally, this is what I find on the site where I don't force registration. The leads that I get, they're smaller, they're fewer in number, but they're very, very strong leads. It's typically, it typically manifests itself by someone reaching out to me, like actually sending an email or them calling me. We literally get calls that say, please come list our house, not come give us a listing presentation. They read the blog, they know us, they see what we're about, and they say, bring the paperwork, we're ready to sign. Through the traditional site where I force registration, it's much more random. I get a lot more registrations, but I get, right now I'm at about probably 20 to 25% of obvious bunk registrations. Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for a phone number, that type of thing. I don't do a lot of really strong lead follow-up, whether it's on the traditional site or the blog. So it's hard for me to know, and because it's only been a few weeks with the forced registration. I see the volume. I'm starting already to be able to tell just from that lead, okay, if they left a phone number or if they don't leave a phone number. That's almost two different types of leads to me. If someone leaves a phone number, they're going to get a call. I'm not a big believer in call them within 15 minutes. First of all, I don't have time a lot of times to call them and because of the volume I get, I'd have to have a lead coordinator do that. But I try to call them within a day or two, and it's a 30-second phone call. It's, hey, this is Jay Thompson. I saw that you were on the site. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know. Probably more than half the time, I don't even get a person. I get an answering machine, and I just leave the message, and I don't ever call them again. But from what I've seen, the non-registration, very solid. It's people reaching out to us as opposed to the forced registration leads. I think that both systems can work, but it's going to be interesting for me at least, and I'll write about it for the HomeGain blog once I get some more data on how that forced registration is going.
I love your participation. The other question is, will people continue with the availability of free services? Why are they registering? We've not seen any decrease in registration at all.
Yeah, I got a couple of very nasty emails from people when I switched my traditional site from registration to non-registration. A couple of very I shouldn't say nasty, very blunt emails about why am I asking for all this personal information. I'm like, I ask for your first name, your last name, and an email address. I don't even force you to put in a phone number. So I struggle with how that's so much personal information. But it tells you a little bit about the psyche of people. They were used to coming to my site and being able to search all day long without giving anything. And once I flipped that switch, it torqued a few people off.
It's interesting because they say when you have the freemium models, once you start free, you end up having to stay free because otherwise you're going to get the backlash.
Yes, I think Mitch has a comment, actually.
All right, Mitch, go.
Just because I do this every day, for your question about the registrations there. We tested it a long time ago. We got a 0.5% return on our clicks to conversion, so clicks to lead on with a non-forced registration. So I'll use it, and we get a 16% capture with our forced registration. So I'm going to give you an example real quick, which will really answer this for you. It's all dollars and cents, right? It's all about making money. So with a 0.5% on 1,000 clicks, that equals 5 leads. You're not going to sell all of them a house. So say you do really good and sell 2 of them a house. Those 2 transactions. On a 1,000 leads, 1,000 clicks is 160 leads. On our current system, we know we're closing about 1 out of 30 to 40. We'll say 1 out of 40 because it's easier. So that's 4 transactions, double the sales. Same dollar cost, but double the sales. So it's just the numbers. And didn't take me long to realize that. I switched pretty quickly, about within 3 to 6 months, I think it was. It's a long time ago now. But we did track that. They're not as good as the leads, but it's all about your systems. If you have good systems and you're closing 1 out of 40 leads, which is decent, not great, but decent, you would have gotten 4 transactions at the same dollar cost instead of 2. And by the way, I think 2 transactions on 5 leads is probably really, really high. So.
Forced registration after looking at a couple of listings, or forced registration right when they sign on to the website, and if they found a difference in the conversion rate?
Yeah.
I can tell you that we did that. We tested forced registration before. We won't show you anything on the MLS, and that went nowhere for us. We needed them to go in and get some time in and invest a little bit, and then ask them for their stuff, and that worked much better. I changed over as of October of last year to quote forced registration, but it's not forced registration. Like, we're not going to show you the MLS unless you do it. It's after you get in and have gone through a couple of details pages before we ask for that.
I have a system whereby I can either force people to register right from the beginning, or not at all, or once they want to see some photographs, additional photographs. And I've tried doing it with forced registration up front, where I end up with Mickey Mouse and all the rest. No registration worked better than that in getting people to actually call me, and they were good leads. But what worked the best and got good information and people to call me was when they registered at the time that they wanted to see more pictures. In other words, they had enough time to look through the site, look at what kind of listings were there. They could come back and forth and in and out as many times as they liked. But when they actually got serious about buying a home and they wanted to look at more pictures, which is traditionally when people, that's what they want to see. What's the house look like inside now? Then asking them to register seemed to do very well. I don't get Mickey Mouse. I usually get phone numbers. So if that helps.
Wayne?
Who let that Canadian in?
I said what I wanted to. If you want more sales out of your visitors, forced registration. I've tested it both ways. Companies like iHouse, Real Estate Webmasters, they've tested it extensively and can give you the data breakdown for that. I can't give you the data breakdown, but I can tell you you'll get a lot more sales if you force registration.
Okay, if there's any further comments, how about a nice round of applause for our panelists? Thank you.